Hey, hey, how's everybody doing? We're excited. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Hi. I love the chat. You guys saw my little chapter book that I left there for you in the chat on all of the housekeeping items to consider during today's workshop. I see people are still kind of filing in, so I'm going to take my time kind of introducing things this morning. That being said, we do have a ton of content to go through today. We're covering two of the most powerhouse HoneyBook features that exist in the product. So I want to make sure that we have enough time to really give you guys a deep dive on each of those things so that you leave here today feeling confident how to use those tools. So that's the HoneyBook Brochure File and the HoneyBook Workflow Tool, which I seriously could teach an hour-long workshop or webinar on either one of those things. So the fact that we're going to combine both into an hour and a half today is like, woo, I'm going to be sweating by the end, but I'm stoked that you guys are here. We're going to jam pack a ton into today. So my name's Mac. We'll get into that in a second. You are here for Closing the Deal, how a strong process helps overcome a fear of sales. You guys, I have a sales background. I'm super excited about this topic today. I know there is a huge fear of sales when it comes to running your own business and communicating with your clients. And we are going to teach you how to break those things down so that you confidently walk into every sales conversation from today on. Okay, so we are so excited to have you guys here and review this all together. Like I said, my name is Mac. I am a HoneyBook product expert. I am on our product education team here. You might have seen me or attended HB 101 at some point, so I teach those. And I help onboard a lot of our members as well. So I've been with the company since 2017, which in startup years is a very long time. So I've seen the company go through a lot of different iterations of the product and worn a lot of different hats here. So I am excited. We're going to bring Rhonda, who is a HoneyBook Pro. So we just kind of launched this HoneyBook Pro initiative. Basically, she is a powerhouse HoneyBook diehard fan, user, ride or die gal, and she helps other HoneyBook members get set up for success. So I'm going to bring her up on screen so she can take over and start introducing us to some business best practices with the HoneyBook system. And then we'll go ahead and dive into our content for the rest of the day. So really stoked to have you guys here. Hey, Rhonda.
Hello. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. So
Good to see ya. So I think I'm going to pass off the slides to you if you're ready to do that. That way you can just move on at your own pace. Does that work?
That works for me.
Awesome. Go for it, girl.
All right.
Great.
Perfect. So as Mac said, my name is Rhonda Evans. I am the owner of Rhonda D. Evans Consulting. I have a background in website design, but quickly I realized that most of my clients had no idea what their customer journey should be and how to deliver a really good customer experience. And so now I am focused heavily on customer experience and making sure that my clients can map that out. And I do this so effortlessly, literally, you guys, with HoneyBook. And just to tell you real quick, I literally went from a 40% close rate to a 90% close rate. And it was solely because I understood my journey and I was able to execute it effortlessly inside of HoneyBook. So I am excited to talk to you guys about this topic. If you have questions afterwards, do not hesitate to reach out to me. You can go directly to the HoneyBook Pro site and find me on there. And yeah, let's get started.
Yeah, and I put your link up above too. So as we're going through, if you guys want to scroll up to my chapter book that I left there, the last little thing that I mentioned is Rhonda's HoneyBook Pro page. So you can click into that as well.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I'm excited to get started with you guys today. So just to kind of give you a heads up, we're going to discuss on the webinar today how understanding your customer journey directly relates to your HoneyBook setup. Number two, how to go from your contact form to brochure to proposal to sale close. And I'm pretty sure that's all what we want to do. That's the goal. And number three, how to create workflows that will save you time and provide a memorable customer experience. Okay. So if you guys are ready, you can go ahead and drop in the chat if you are ready to get all of these nuggets today. All right, so I know you guys are signed up today because sales can be a little bit scary. It can even be overwhelming for you, but it actually really can be fun. And today I'm going to show you how to do sales more boldly and more confidently in your business using HoneyBook. So before we even get into HoneyBook, before you get to sending out a brochure, before you send out a proposal, there's some pre-work that's involved in all of this that's going to make your life so much easier. And that's understanding your customer journey, right? So the pre-work revolves around mapping out the end goal. So what is it that you want to achieve from working with your clients from the moment they inquire about your services all the way through when they actually become your client and you're working with them? Once you map all of that information out, the next thing you're going to do is going to apply that journey inside of HoneyBook. And when we get into those steps and how to do this, you'll see why this step is so important, because a lot of times people get into HoneyBook and they're like, okay, what do I do? It's so many things here. It's like a brand new toy. But think about it like this. When you go on a trip, you need your GPS, right? But even before you get in the car and you turn on that GPS, you have to prepare for that trip. You have to know what you're going to take. You have to know how much money you need to budget for gas. You know, there's all these things that you need to know before you actually hit the road. And that's what this understanding your customer journey is like. It's like preparing for a trip, right? So once you've mapped it out, you apply that journey inside of HoneyBook. Now is executing the process. And we're going to show you how to do that through workflows and automation. Okay. Why is this important? You're probably like, why do I need to do all this pre-work? You will be able to directly apply the journey that you've mapped out ahead of time to your contact forms, to your brochures, and to your workflows. And here's a pro tip. If you already do not have your contact forms from HoneyBook on your website, that's the first thing I want you to do when you leave this webinar today. Make sure that your contact forms are on your websites, okay? Next, the reason this is important is because applying this method will provide your customers with an experience from day one. If they are inquiring and you're already wowing them in that process, the chances of them referring you to other people are likely. And then actually when they're working with you, you're continuing to provide a memorable experience. There's a definite chance they're going to refer you to other people and give you a glowing review. Lastly, this is important because you now close more sales in less time. And further on, I'm going to show you literally how I went from a sales call to a closed sale in about 30 minutes. Literally 30 minutes, you guys. That was it. Okay. So here's how you're going to do exactly what I just talked about. Step one, determine your access points. You know, how are clients reaching you? Is it through your website? Is it through social media? Is it through client referrals? For me, a lot of my referrals come from the HoneyBook Pro website. So I have a completely separate contact form for that because I want to know who's coming in from the HoneyBook Pro site, right? The next thing that you want to do is make sure that it always leads them to your contact form. I know a lot of us are like, oh, people just send me a text because it's a referral, or they go to my DMs. That's fine. That is totally fine. That's where the sale starts. But make sure that you're always leading them back to that contact form, because that contact form is going to directly relate to your pipeline inside of HoneyBook. Okay. Number two, you're going to outline all of your service offerings, right? Every service that you offering, whether it's coaching, a discovery call, a strategy call, whatever it is that you provide as a service, make sure that you outline all of that, right? The reason for this is because what you've mapped out for all of your services, this will be directly applied to your templates inside of HoneyBook, starting with your packages templates. And here's another pro tip. When you are setting up HoneyBook, make sure you always start with your packages after the contact form. Next are the brochures, the proposals, and the invoices. All of those things are going to directly feed into one another, okay? Step 3, lastly, execute this process by creating workflows. And we're going to do some amazing things for you today to show you how you can create these workflows. Workflows do not just include sending a questionnaire or a brochure, but it also includes you setting tasks for yourself inside of the workflow for your clients. And some of you might have noticed that now HoneyBook calls them automations, which is a good transitional word because that's exactly what it's going to be. You're going from manually doing things to now automatically doing things. So you will see now workflows now named as automations inside of HoneyBook. And if you haven't already, you will soon. All right. So I know I've talked a lot about this customer journey. I wanted to give you guys a quick glance at exactly what my own personal customer journey looks like for clients. And I won't go through it every single one of them because I definitely want to get to the workflows and the automations and the brochures for you. But you can see it starts from a post on Instagram. It goes through to them filling out the form to me automatically sending them a pricing guide. That's where that automation is going to come into play. You even can see in this inside of this journey where I have it to where it automatically will send them the client brochures. It will go through them making their payments, sending them their welcome package, all the way to the end of the process where I send them out a feedback questionnaire. So when you're thinking about mapping out your customer journey, be this detailed in the process, okay? All right, so moving on to the client process. And if you have any questions, definitely put them in the chat. So once we get to the Q&A section, we can see those questions and answer them for you. All right, so now let's talk about the process. The process from the contact form, the brochure, the proposal, to you getting more sales in your business. Step 1. I can't say this enough, y'all. The contact form is so important. Step 1, the contact form is the first step with clients when you're entering your sales pipeline. So that's why it's important for it to be on your website, whether it's the actual form or a button that's connected to the form. The ultimate goal is to get them into HoneyBook, right? So they can start going through your pipeline. This step is important because this is where you grab that beneficial information, right, to prepare you for the sales call. So if there are certain things that you want to know from your potential customer, like what their budget is, or what industry that they're in, or what their struggles are, what are they expecting to get from the call, any pertinent information that's going to help you close that sale should be on that contact form, okay? Or you can create a separate intake form for that. Step 2, once you have the completed call, sending your brochure is the next most essential step in this process. It solidifies everything that you discussed on the call and provides you with the opportunity to offer any complimentary add-on sales. When you're on that sales call, because you have obtained that preliminary information, when you get on those calls, it should directly speak to that. I see on the form you've indicated you're struggling with X, Y, and Z, right? Because you're struggling with this, you're reiterating what they're saying, then you solve their problem. I have the perfect package that will help you with this. My package will do 1, 2, 3, and 4. And with that, I'll be able to help you do whatever the transformation is for them, right? So now you've told them this. before you get off that call, you tell them you're going to receive my pricing guide. You're going to select which service that you would like to move forward with. And then I've also added any complimentary services that you may be interested in as well. That way they know when they get that brochure, they're just checking it off, and then they're going to receive their final proposal, which you will instruct them on as well. Step 3, the proposal. So getting to this step is easy once you set the expectation for those clients. So like I said, you've already set it up. You've told them you're going to get a brochure, select your services, select any add-on services. Once you do that, I'll receive a notification immediately, and I will send you out your final proposal. Once you receive the proposal, you'll be able to see what you've selected, see your payment schedule, and see your contract. On there, you'll be able to directly sign it and make your first payment. So you're literally walking them through the steps. So that way they know what to expect, and then it happens just that fast. Once your client receives that proposal, all you're doing is just confirming everything that you told them that they would expect. And then next is signed and paid. Okay. And here are a couple other key tips about this process. When you do your payment schedule, because I do get this question a lot from my clients, I may give certain clients certain discounts. How do I do that? Or some of these clients may be recurring payment clients. When you get to the proposal, you have an opportunity to customize it. So if there's discounts, if you need to update and customize that payment schedule, you can do that at that point. You can also use the contract portion to reiterate the expectations, the deadlines, the communication expectations. Make sure that these things are set in stone in the contract so there's no surprises. Be sure payment reminders are turned on as well. So what this will do is, so you're not sending out reminders, hey, an invoice needs to be paid. HoneyBook does all of that work for you. You can set it to certain days when you want it to set out and send out and things like that. So make sure that those payment reminders are turned on. And be sure that you have email templates to match your brand with the proposal. So whenever you send out a questionnaire, a brochure, a proposal, make sure that you have an email template that matches those things and goes together. Also, another pro tip, whenever you're sending out your proposals, take a look at the settings. See if you have it set for card payment only, card or bank transfer, or auto draft. So you can set those different things up within the proposal as well. So here is how you are going to do the start to finish from the contract all the way through. Okay, you guys ready? Are you ready? Okay, so you'll see right here an example of a contact form that I have, and you'll see some of the things indicated on there, like what type of business do you have? Because I do systems, it says, do you currently have systems in place? So things that I want to know before I talk to them. So create your contact forms that will allow you to capture key information prior to the consultation. Step 2, once on the call, reiterate your client's pain points, followed by your solutions like we discussed, okay? Step 3, before ending the call, prepare your clients with that next step. And we kind of talked about that. So after the call, you will receive your service guide, select the service, any add-on options. Once selected, you will receive your final proposal where you review your services, payment schedule, and contract. It is so important to walk them through this step because once you do that and then they actually get the brochure, they're more likely to go ahead through the steps because it's at the top of their mind. Step 4, do exactly what you said you were going to do. So the way to do that is by having your templates ready. And the way that we're going to do that is how, right? Making sure that we map out that customer journey and transferring it over into HoneyBook ahead of time. So next, you're going to send that brochure. Once the client selects the packages, send the proposal and continue with the experience by sending a client a welcome packet, or if you do a welcome email or some type of welcome gift, depending on what type of business that you have. All right, last but certainly not least, let's talk about automation, right? Let's talk about how you are going to leverage automation. But before we do that, I'm going to share the screen with Mac so she can come on and show you some fun things.
Perfect. Great. Yeah, I think this is like the perfect time, since we were just talking about, you know, brochures to proposals and all of that stuff inside HoneyBook. This is like the perfect chance to be able to go through and actually show you guys what that all looks like in the product. So I kind of want to start us at the end right now, just to kind of drive home the idea of what this is going to look like from the client side. Because I think sometimes, like, one of the gaps that I hear, one of the complaints that I hear is, especially when people are trying to onboard themselves to the HoneyBook system, is, well, what are my clients going to see? You know, it's difficult to anticipate what the client experience is going to be once you actually hit send on that file. So I want to start us out there today and then backtrack from there, so that you know what your client is going to be receiving if you were to implement all these incredible tools that Rhonda is discussing. Okay, so let's start out in your client's email inbox. Let's say you've just finished that consult call. You've set that expectation with them, not only on the call, but also in the email of what they're receiving. Okay, so great chatting with you. Here are some service options based on our discussion earlier. They'll also see the opportunity to have some add-ons. Maybe you want to upsell this individual. And this document's going to set the expectation. Okay, so they'll be able to click this button here, and that'll go ahead and open up the brochure file. So the brochure file, you guys, if you attended last Thursday's workshop, we talked all about brochure and branding and all of the different opportunities that are available in this file. Like I said earlier, this file is so robust. I could literally teach a 1-hour webinar on this file alone. So I'm going to kind of skim the surface and dive into a couple details that I think are relevant to our audience today. And even in a couple minutes here, I'm going to invite Farhana up on screen. She's actually one of our HoneyBook members. She's here in the audience today, and we are going to go through her brochure file and actually discuss the best practices that maybe she can implement, have a conversation with her, and make sure that she's getting the most out of the file. And hopefully you guys will be able to learn a little bit throughout that process as well. So back to our client experience. This is what your client's going to see. They're going to get in here. They're going to have, a beautifully branded document. They're going to be able to click through the sections so they can go through this document. It's a great way to set expectations. I know we've been talking about setting expectations with your members, giving them an incredible experience. Maybe this is an area where you've chosen to personalize this document a little bit by including some of those pain points like Rhonda was mentioning. So there's a lot of flexibility here, whether you decide to leave placeholders for yourself to customize on a case-by-case basis, or whether you really do want to templatize this initial part of the process. That's totally up to you, but the flexibility and the tools are available in this document depending on how you'd like to interact with your clients. Okay, so tons of opportunities for visuals, very visual heavy visual aid document. If you guys, again, were in last Thursday's webinar, we were preaching about Canva. If you don't use Canva, we love it. You can create some beautiful visuals, branding visuals in Canva, and then upload them into this file so that everything is very cohesive and a very branded, beautiful, wow your client experience. Okay, that's what this file is all about. Okay, so maybe you're setting expectations, you're letting them know what next steps are available, and now we're on to pricing and services. Okay, so this is where your clients will be able to tick the little boxes like Rhonda was mentioning about what services they're interested in. So we've got a big spender today. They're going to choose your highest tier package. They're going on down here to the add-ons. It looks like the settings in our add-ons are basically forcing them to choose an option here. You can change the settings on this, which I'll show you once we get into Farhana's account as well. But let's say your client wants to get both of these add-ons, and they're going to go ahead and submit that brochure back to you. Okay, so now let's go back into the project where this was just submitted. So now I'm back. I'm you guys. I'm the business owner now. I'm in my business account, and my client just submitted their brochure. Okay. So we've got this little tracker down here. They viewed the brochure and they submitted it. I'm in this client's project. And what do we see here? This is what Rhonda was teasing to you guys. The proposal is already drafted up. Okay, so the client went through that brochure experience. They selected what they're interested in. And you can do this at whatever point in the process makes sense for you. Again, so this is why it's really important to map out that process, right? Because if you want your client to receive this brochure before your consult call, so you know the direction of the consult call, and you don't even want to show pricing, you just want to know what services they're interested in so you can have a direction on that call. That's great. That's your MO. That's your process. You got to know that, and you got to know how to put that into HoneyBook. That maybe you're someone who sends a brochure file after you've discussed. Maybe you send one before and after. You've got tons of different options here, okay? This could be a welcome packet. This doesn't have to have service selections in it at all. But when you do have the service selection component, this is the world you're looking at. It is that really, really quick drive at home sales close process, okay? Let's say in this example, you just got off the phone, you shared the proposal, you're sharing it at the moment that they're most excited, right? This is sales 101, you guys. When your clients are excited to hand over their wallets, you better make it easy. You better have that invoice ready to go out. HoneyBook makes that so easy. Okay, so they're going through the brochure. They're like, yes, I'm excited. I love Rhonda. I love Mac. Let's book this girl out. So they're going through checking those boxes. They submit it right away. Let's take a look. You're hopping into the proposal. You see that they have selected your highest tier package. That sounds about right based on your discussion earlier. They've got some add-ons. So maybe you want to adjust price here. Maybe this is one of those things that you haven't shown price on because it's a case-by-case basis. So maybe you charge $50 an hour for this, and you know that you're going to need 3 extra hours for that particular item. Okay, and maybe based off of that, you know that they actually don't need this item down here. So again, you're in complete control. Even though your clients were the ones going through the brochure making selections, this is still a drafted file. HoneyBook has not sent this automatically. So like Rhonda was saying, when it comes to adding a discount or adding tax or anything else, changing price here, whatever you need to do, you're in complete control before you hit send on this file. But 99% of the work, that 100% of the work actually that could have been done already is done for you. So that's the beauty of the brochure to proposal. Coming down here to the payment schedule, of course, you can always adjust the payment schedule like you guys always do. I'm sure you can change the amount that's due initially. You can change the due dates on things. So you have a ton of options here. I'm not going to go through all of this right now because, again, we don't have time for it, but hopefully you guys are familiar with how to adjust your payment schedules. I also just really quickly, because Rhonda mentioned it, want to show you guys the settings on the proposal file. So this menu over here, if you click this left menu open, this will give you the ability to control how your clients pay you. So this is what she was talking about when she was saying ACH, paying by credit card, or even setting up auto payments for your clients. So this is basically just going to give them the terms of auto payments, make sure they agree to those terms, and then they'll have the ability to pay. So you can toggle those things on or off. Same thing with gratuity. Okay, so this is where you control all those settings. Then you'll get down here to the contract. This contract is always going to populate with your default contract, which you control in your master template section. You just look for the star icon next to the contract of your choosing, and that will be the default contract that always populates here. If you need a different contract, though, it's really easy to just pull that in from this drop-down menu. Then we scroll down to the bottom. Of course, our contract is auto-filling like it always does with our smart fields. We've got the ability for the client to sign. So from the client view, the proposal is broken down into pages. Again, hopefully you guys are already familiar with the proposal file because this is the best, quickest, most amazing booking system probably that you could hope for. It's going to outline the services. It's going to give them the contract. It will not let them pay until they've signed that contract. So you're always legally protected. If you're somebody who is still sending invoices and contracts separately in the HoneyBook system, please stop doing that. If you collect those two things on the same day, send a proposal instead. This is going to make it so much faster. There are even smart fields that can pull from like your package selections up above into the contract to reiterate that. So if you're someone who has contracts that are specific based off of the services that you offer, which most of you probably do, okay, trust me, okay? Just trust me on this one. Just use a proposal file if I'm singing your song today, okay? But from the client side, this is what it's going to look like. They're going to be able to review what they're receiving. They're going to review a glimpse of the payment schedule. They continue on to the contract. They're going to be able to review the contract and sign. They've got any highlighted fields. Again, they would not be able to pay until they sign. I'm just in the kind of client demo view of this, so I actually can click through to it, but let's say they signed it. Now they can go to the payments page and go ahead and pay directly through the system. Okay, so that is full start to finish. You guys can see how quick that is, especially if you have like a template payment schedule and a default contract template set up already. You are probably going into that file and just hitting send. So the booking time from the time you get off that consult call, like Rhonda was saying, she went from like 40 minutes or even a day or whatever to like 10-minute time, because you're hitting send on that brochure template that's already drafted up for you. The client makes their selections. You go in and hit send on that proposal and they can sign and pay. They can even do this from their phones, you guys. We're making it super, super easy here. Okay. I want to get Farhana up here so we can take a deeper dive into our brochure file, because that is at the heart of what we're talking about. That's like the start of the system. So like I said, I kind of started at the end and then we're backtracking. So now, okay, I've sold you on using the brochure and proposal, but how the heck do you even set up a brochure? I've got you. Okay, let's get Farhana up here. And I am going to bring up her account for y'all so we can take a look. And then we'll dive into what she's doing amazing, ask her a couple questions, make sure she's doing everything she could be. Hi, Farhana. How are you?
Hey, good. How are you guys?
Good. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So do you want to give everyone just a quick intro into Imedia Exposure and what you guys do and what you're all about?
Yeah. So, hey, everyone. My name is Farhana Cannon. I'm a social media and brand strategist. So we help brands with their online presence. We help them create marketing plans and strategies, and then we implement those online for them. And we help them with taking people from social media and getting them through their marketing funnel to be a paying customer.
Amazing. Okay, so basically what we're talking about today, I love it.
Yeah.
We're very on brand here. Okay, great. And Farhan, I know we were texting a little bit earlier, but what brochure out of these do you want me to kind of take a look at today?
Go down a little bit. I have like a million of them and I've been reworking them. So sure. Right there where your cursor is, Imedia Services, to the left, middle. Yeah.
Cool. Amazing. Okay. Let's get this loaded up here. So when I was looking over your brochure documents, obviously you have a lot in there and I know you're still working through some of the details and things. So I think my first question, there we go. My first question was like, what use case are you hoping to send this out? Like, are you one of those people who's going to be sending it out? Like, again, to kind of focus on that mapping out that client experience, right? So are you sending this pre-consult call, after consult call? Do you take a consult call? Like, walk us through the step, like right before you would hit send.
So we established a relationship with people somehow, depending, maybe it's a conversation online, maybe they have listened to my podcast, maybe they've come to my mastermind, or maybe they've come to a virtual webinar. And then I give them a 20-minute complimentary consult where we take a look at their goals. And then I will send them this brochure because I go over like the different things that they can do. And so there's a million of them because sometimes I break down or I eliminate things. Right. Sorry. So this is like my main one.
Okay.
So for that person that's like, well, I'm not quite sure if I want to do that or that. I'm like, okay, you can take a look at all of them.
Yeah. Okay, great. I love that. Yeah, I think there are definitely some use cases just for the audience as well, like where you'll find you want to have a brochure that outlines a good chunk of your services just to give your clients an idea of what you can do. even just as a placeholder, so that like you're saying for Hana, when you actually go to hit send on this file, all the information is there, and all you have to do is say if they don't want this branding page or this doesn't apply based off of your conversation from the consult call, you can just hover and hit the trash can. So all the information is there that you need it to be, and you can just kind of eliminate based off of whatever conversation you've had. So I think that's a good starting point for sure. And I think I definitely see a lot of people do that. So, and also you guys will notice Farhana up here has taken an image from outside of HoneyBook. So what did you use to create this, just so people know?
That was probably done on Canva, but I have a graphic designer that does much better stuff than my Canva.
Okay. Great. Yeah. So there is the opportunity. I'm just going to poke around in here. I'll make sure that I change anything back so I'm not messing up your stuff. But just to give you guys an idea of how she did this, or how you'll go to do this when you're building out your brochure, when you go to add, so I just hit that plus button. So you just hover and look for a plus button. And there's really 3 components to a brochure file. Okay, so those are the 3 columns. There's content, which is basically text and images. So this is how you're going to make your brochure really beautiful and keep your clients really engaged while they're interacting with this file. So this is, you know, maybe where you can choose to introduce yourself. So this is actually one point I was going to mention as well, for Hannah. This might be a good place for you to just add like a little company intro. Like obviously you've just gotten off that consult call, but just to reiterate and kind of continue to build that relationship with them, and have a little blurb of text here, even if it's super personalized, like, hey, so great chatting with you earlier, and almost have it be like a little mini like message area. You could leave that as a placeholder too. And
so with that, because you can put the name in, you can put that template with the name, so it just auto populates when you put in the customer, right?
I don't think it doesn't do that in the brochure file. There's like smart field option, but you can leave that placeholder so that right before you hit send, you just quickly personalize it before you hit send on it.
Okay. Yeah. When I was looking at your first one, I was like, oh, I don't have that. And I definitely should add that, because it's like, here's just the brochure, and that intro kind of makes it feel a little bit more gentle coming in.
Yeah.
This portion as well, I would say, because it's after the consultation call, this section can also be where you kind of, again, try to walk them through what they should do as they're viewing this. So, you know, great talking to you today. You know, throughout as you view the brochure, you'll be able to select which packages you'll like to move forward with working with you. So something like that in that section.
Setting expectations and next steps. Yeah, that's huge for sure too. So yeah, you can add, like we were saying, you can add text, you could add images, you could do text on image, although you would never be able to get it to look like this just with our current design ability, which is why we recommend, you know, typically building something like an image, like a header image like this exactly, and then just pulling that as a static image into HoneyBook. So that's what Farhana did. For those of you who are wondering, she created that image in Canva or wherever, had her graphic designer make it, and then you can just pull the header image in using this cover image icon. So those are options. We've also got this question block. So sometimes this is a good, I don't know if this necessarily applies to your business model or your process, Farhana, but just so the audience knows, you can add questions to you know, further get to know what they're looking for. So if you're using this as like a welcome packet rather than as a service display, for example, maybe this is where you decide to have like a longer kind of intake form where you introduce yourself and you're setting next steps and expectations, and then asking further questions of the client that you're going to be working with, so that you go into that consult call with like a very, you know, you're obviously providing a beautifully branded kind of questionnaire intake form with your client. Then you go into that consult call, maybe you have that questionnaire open, or this brochure file rather open, with their answers to those questions. So just depending on your process, some people like to use the brochure file as that kind of a tool as well.
And then the date picker, would that be like, you know, because a lot of times they send the brochure and it's like, well, when do you want to get started? You know, if your goal is for this date, is that what that date picker is? And does it automatically set up an appointment for them in the calendar?
It won't be doing that. So it's really just any of these custom questions that you add to the brochure or to the questionnaire are just going to be like static questions. They're not really going to act as smart fields like that. But if you wanted them to be able to choose an appointment time with you, I recommend including your HoneyBook scheduling link. So when you type in any kind of text, you can always highlight it, and that'll give you the ability to change the font, the colors, anything else, and you can hyperlink out to your HoneyBook scheduling tool. So if you wanted to say here, what date would you like to get started? Feel free to schedule our first meeting here, and then include the hyperlink. You can absolutely do it that way. That's more of like how you would get a scheduled situation going on. Now, if you wanted to tie the kind of date picker to the project date in your project details in HoneyBook, you would use the suggested question type project date field, because all of these suggested question types, similar to the contact form, are basically going to be smart fields inside of the HoneyBook system. So not only are they going to pull into the project details inside of the individual project where this file or the contact form is being submitted, but it'll also pull into things like your contract, your payment schedule later when you go to build it out. So like when we were checking out the proposal, one of the options was to adjust the payment schedule based off of project date. So it really depends on how you want to set it up. But I think for Hannah, specifically for your question, I would recommend just hyperlinking your HoneyBook scheduling inside of the brochure somewhere.
Okay. And then that project date will just automatically go onto the contract.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So if you wanted them to choose project date here, that would automatically tie into the project details and then autofill into the contract as well. Yeah. I also would recommend, if you're going to have them schedule, I would put it towards the end of the brochure file so that it's a very clear next step. They've gone through the whole file. Maybe give them a blurb at the beginning that says, at the bottom of this file, you'll be able to book time with me. So if that's what they're aiming for, they can just head straight there and book that time. But I would recommend putting it at the end so it's a very clear, actionable next step for your clients. If you guys attended Laura and my workshop number 1, she talked about always just having one call to action per request with your clients. So if you're sending a welcome packet brochure document, make sure that next step is scheduling that consult call. Or if you're sending them a service selection, make sure the only thing you're asking them to do is select what services they're interested in. So just one call to action per document is usually the best route to go. So you'll see kind of the final block here is adding services, which Farhana is like our star student example for, because like she was saying, she was including pretty much all of her service options so that after her consult call, she can just kind of go through and remove what doesn't apply to this specific instance for the client she just got off the phone with, but everything is there for when she needs it. And this is a great plug also for when you go to add items to your brochure document. This is what Rhonda was talking about when she was saying, set up your packages first. So set up your contact forms so you can get those leads coming into the system, but set up your packages in the template section, because that is the core building block of being able to set up your brochures, being able to build an invoice or a proposal from scratch. So people always are, when they first get their HoneyBook account set up, they're like, why did they set up the packages? This is so weird. These aren't even packages. This is my hourly rate. People are always confused. I promise you it's done correctly. It just makes it easier so that you can go to bill your clients and actually build out one of these amazing service selection files later on. So you'll see packages right away when you go to add it in. Your packages are right there, so you can just click and pull in all the items. That way you're not typing it out from scratch every single time. Okay, let's see. But I definitely think this is a good route to go for your specific use case, Farhana, with having all of the details in here so that you can just remove them on a case-by-case cadence. One thing I did want to point out, though, is the settings gear. Have you had time to explore this yet, Farhana?
No.
Okay, so in every single one of your service blocks, you're going to want to go in and look for this gear icon and click it to make sure that the service settings are set up as you'd like them to be, because you can allow your clients, you can see here, you can allow them to select more than one, you can allow them to only select one or at least one. or you can allow them to even update quantities on things. So if you want them to be able to book a certain number of months of services with you, you can even include that as well.
So a question with that. So for the ad campaign, they could have, 4 different ad campaigns in 1 month. So that's a good thing to know that's an option there that they could put that.
Mm-hmm.
But also another thing is that I only do 6-month contracts. Some people I'll make exceptions for,
Mm-hmm.
but like some of these things are like a one-off thing. Like,
Mm-hmm.
an ad campaign, maybe you only want one of them for the
Mm-hmm.
6 months, or the branding that's going to be done once.
Mm-hmm.
So there's things like that. But then with the done for you, we do 6-month contracts. So how do I go about doing that in the best way, I think?
Yeah. I think you could probably just keep it as is if you want it. So there's different options, right? And you might even want to experiment and just see what works the best for you, because like we were talking about earlier, no matter what your client selects here, you always have full control in that draft proposal before you hit send on it. So if you don't want your clients to be able to select the quantity, but maybe you actually want to have like a question content block right after this that says like, how many months of ad campaigns would you like? Note, we only do up to 6-month contracts, so that they know kind of a little bit more context around answering a question like that. And then that way you have the service selection, you have the answer to their question. And then when you go to edit the proposal before you hit send, you have all the information you need, but you're still in complete control at that point. So that's another way I see people utilizing the questions in conjunction with the service selection, is they're kind of using the questions to give a little bit more context around their services and get the information they need from their clients. Do you think something like that would work?
Yeah, I wouldn't probably use that because I wouldn't want them, because that's not really how, like, they can't decide, we want one ad campaign for 6 months,
Okay.
And it's not a 6-month minimum. Like, I have clients that worked with me like for 5 years.
Yeah.
So,
okay. Gotcha. Yeah. So I think maybe just leaving it as is, and then based on whatever circumstance it is, you can always adjust that proposal before you hit send, since it is such a case-by-case situation. Yeah. Or you could allow them to choose quantity, and then, I mean, that's not the best experience if they choose like way more quantities than you allow for them to. That's not the best experience. So that's why I think you should just leave it the way it is, because you don't give them the opportunity to say like, oh, I want 400 ad campaigns. And then you're like, oh no, I only do like this many, because you can't cap the quantity on those. So there are limitations for sure that you'll need to work around when you're considering that. Yeah, I would say really my only kind of feedback in the brochure is just using more content blocks or more questions, just to kind of set those expectations for next steps, introduce yourself, and kind of continue your brand voice and introducing, yourself and continuing that conversation and that storyline with your clients. But besides that, I think you have set it up how I would recommend for someone to set it up for the use cases that you've been talking about. Maybe include that scheduling link in the content, and a little bit more brand imagery throughout the thing too, just to keep people engaged so they're not scrolling through a bunch of content. And then I think you're golden.
Yeah, so now that seeing the other one, I was going to add more blocks and then describe the process. I like how you guys had that in the beginning, and then kind of adding more imagery to it.
Yep. And then I think you'll be perfect. Yeah. And then usually, always a good idea to have a little conclusion at the bottom, like, thanks so much for taking the time to go through this document. We look forward to working with you, schedule your next meeting here or whatever it is, just so that they have a clear at the very bottom. Because if they see all this and they just skip through and kind of go only where they need to go, giving that conclusion at the bottom is always a good way to wrap things up, so that when they're at the bottom, they're always seeing, where they're supposed to go next, or what they can expect from you next. And that could even be part of your automations as well.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's good to add.
Great. Okay, awesome. I'm going to pass it back to Rhonda. Farhana, thank you so much for letting us go through your account. I hope this is helpful. All righty. Thank you.
Bye, thanks.
Bye. Okay, Rhonda, I'm going to pass it back to you so we can talk through automations.
Now, before I get started on the automations, just real quick, when it comes to the brochures, if you want to give your clients a glimpse of all of your services that you offer, I would often recommend sending them a service guide. So ahead of time before the call, because the service guide really doesn't have pricing on it. It just lists out all of the services. And then if you want to put a question box at the bottom to say which packages would you be interested to talking about on the call, that way when you get on the call, you kind of know what focus which direction they're going into, and then using the brochure that has the pricing after the call, so that way you only have the recommended services versus your laundry list of services on there, because sometimes people get overwhelmed. They're like, I don't know, and they don't book. So that would kind of be a good example of how you can set that up.
I love that. Yeah, that's a perfect starting point. And that keeps it like general enough too that you can automate a little bit easier, because we're going to get into that in a couple minutes about how you can automate. So keeping things general when you can, and then personalizing things where you know it's necessary to really, make that connection and build that relationship. It's kind of a fine balance, but it can definitely be done in HoneyBook. So we're going to go into that in just a second here.
Absolutely. And yes, you guys, when I call them service guides or pricing guides, yes, it's definitely still the brochure. You just have the opportunity to name it whatever you choose to name it.
Exactly. And it just kind of depends on what content you decide to include. Like, people use it from a welcome packet to a service selector to a questionnaire to offboarding your clients with like a happiness survey, which is actually what we're going to go through on Thursday's workshop. A proofing document, like whatever part of your process, if you need to provide content or ask questions or show your services and have your clients select those services, the brochure file can do it. It's just a matter of how you mash those tools up and when you decide to share it with your clients. So it's totally up to you. The tools are just there for you to use when you see fit.
Absolutely. So are we excited? We just got through talking about brochures and what that looks like and how to set it up. Give me a ready in the comments if you guys are ready to talk about automation, because this is really, really exciting, y'all. So HoneyBook Automation. So with this one, you have to, again, think about the client experience. So creating automations means being prepared, right? So you already know what you want to do with that client. You already know what their experience should be in this point. And so that's where that preparedness comes from, with mapping out that customer journey. So from this, in order to make the automation flow the way that you need it to flow, make sure that you have created templates for each part of the customer journey. If you know that you're going to send out questionnaires, make sure those templates are in place. If you know you're sending out brochures, make sure that those templates are in place. And also make sure that the email templates that go along with these files are also in place as well. Okay. Once you have everything in place, you can now build out your automations. So with, it says workflows, but we are transitioning to automations. But with automations, for when it comes to the client experience standpoint, respond to clients in a timely manner, because you have this set up already. And I'm going to show you a sneak peek of how quickly this is going to happen. You know how people have autoresponders on. Inside of HoneyBook, if you have your automation set up already, you can immediately send them that email. And if you wanted to send out a brochure that has your service options without the pricing ahead of time and collect some preliminary information, you can do that through the automation tool inside of HoneyBook. Right. Another key point is it allows you to be present in the experience, even though you're not physically there. How many times have you received a new inquiry and it's midnight? You're not going to roll over and necessarily respond. And if you are, stop it. We need boundaries. You're not going to necessarily, roll over and respond to that client right then and there. Having automations set up allows you to respond without you physically responding to them. It also sets the tone of the relationship moving forward. That potential client feels like, oh my goodness, I sent this. I didn't expect to hear anything until the next day, but I already have this information that's already valuable and helpful. And now I'm going to go ahead and book that call with them. And lastly, it builds trust with you and the client that you are professional. In anything that we're doing in our business, we want to show up as professionals, and having automation set up in your HoneyBook account allows you to set that tone and build that trust from day one with your potential clients. The benefits of it are, with automations, it directly connects to your contact form. So you'll see in the upcoming examples how having that contact form in place, when you set certain fields inside of that section in HoneyBook, it will automatically send it out. So you can say, hey, if a client selects a certain service type, send this automation out. If a client just completes my default contact form, send this automation out. So it really is important to have these contact forms inside of HoneyBook. You can also incorporate tasks into your workflow. So some things, you want to automatically go out, but there are some things you don't necessarily want to automatically go out, or it may not just be able to do in the system just yet. For example, once a client becomes a client with you, you want to make sure that you're sending out their client portal link so they can create their logins. They can easily look at the files. They can easily look at emails. They can easily make their payments, right? That's not a function that's, you can automatically send it out, but you can put it in your automation list as a task to say, send client, the client portal link. So you can also add task in there. And next, another benefit is if the steps can be set to automatic or allow you the opportunity to review. So you can set it to say, hey, let me approve this step before you automatically send it out. That gives you an opportunity to customize it if you want to review it, make sure the certain things are set in there that needs to be set before it automatically sends it out, which is a really good feature when you have a bit of customization in your process. Okay, so here is an example of what I was telling you about earlier, how I literally had a client who had a call with me, and in 30 minutes, she booked and paid and did everything. She scheduled her onboarding call. She was able to receive her service guide where she saw my services. We got on the call. After the call, I immediately sent her that brochure. She viewed the brochure. Right after that, she got her proposal. She viewed her proposal and made her first payment. And that all happened in the matter of 30 minutes, you guys. And that wouldn't have happened if I didn't have my workflows already set up inside of HoneyBook. Okay, so here is how you can do this. So step one, since you've already mapped out your customer journey, because we've done that, right? Right. Okay, we're nodding our heads, right? You know the key points in the process to apply to the workflows. So here are a couple of different workflows that you can, automations that you can set up inside of HoneyBook. New client inquiry, a consultation follow-up, onboarding process, project touchpoint process, offboarding process, client survey process. These are all different automations that you can set up inside of HoneyBook. So that way you see what it is, and it's not one big, long, continuing workflow. You can kind of break it up. And then when we hire teams, or if you already have a team in place, it is clearly outlined in there which automation needs to be applied to that project. Okay. Step two, apply action items to send out emails or files to the workflow. Make sure that you have an email template that goes with each step. So if you have certain action items, like you do certain touch point check-ins with your clients, make sure that those action items are on that automation as well. And again, the email is associated with it. When we do the interactive demonstration, you'll see why I am constantly saying, make sure you have an email that goes with that action item. Step 3, if there's a step that is not mentioned in the drop down, and you'll see that in the demo, add it as a task within workflow. Remember, you can set up workflows as automatic, or you can review it first. So a pro tip is that you can set automations to go out based on that contact form automatically. So like I told you earlier, when I get new inquiries, they automatically get an email with my scheduling link in there, and they get that brochure all within the same step, and it goes out automatically to them. And every single time, you guys, they do book. I honestly say they do book that discovery call. All right, so I am going to put it back over to Mac so she can go through the demonstration with you guys.
Yeah, we are going to cover workflows right now, you guys. This is another one that we could teach an hour-long workshop on, I promise you. I think the easiest way, again, to go through this, just because we're going to go through some kind of similar details and files in Thursday's workshop. So again, and we even touched on brochure, like I was saying in last Thursday's workshop. So if you watch these all in conjunction, I promise you'll get the large majority of your questions answered. But for right now, I'm going to keep it kind of high level, but really step-by-step breakdown where you need to stop off in your HoneyBook account to make sure that your workflows will be set up for success. Because like Rhonda's been saying, there are a lot of different preliminary things that you need to get set up and have in place really before your workflows or your automations are going to do the job. Okay, so kind of stop number 1, which is not obvious at all, is going to be your company settings. Okay, so anytime you're getting ready to set up your workflows, I recommend starting out in your company settings, because this is where you're going to be able to control your project types. I'm going to keep teasing back to the previous workshops, you guys. We talked all about this in workshop number 1 with Laura. So when you come over here to your company settings, and you correct your project types to get them reflecting the service offerings that you provide or the types of clients that you work with. So again, to tease back to workshop number 1, the live interactive part of the workshop that we did with a HoneyBook member, she helps college students write essays, and she also does some business consulting. So on her contact form, she had a question that was not tied to any field. It was just a general kind of static question. Like I was saying, it wasn't one of those suggested question types, where she was asking what grade the student was in. And I said to her, I think this is a really good opportunity for you to actually have this be your project type question, so that based off of the grade, you can then go and maybe automate your process, because she knows she's going to send maybe a different set of steps to, her pre-K students than her, 12th grade students, or an 11th grader who's getting ready to start applying, whereas 12th grade, maybe they're like already in the mix and she's really got to pick up the pace a little bit faster. So whether it comes to prioritizing her clients differently or sending them different types of information, that's what the project types are all about. Project types are the core way, one of the core ways that you're going to be able to automate your process. And that's why we start here in your company settings. So the way I got here is through the profile picture. You're going to click company settings. You're going to come down here to preferences, and then project types we can edit right here. So depending on your process, you can get super creative here between, project types are really the way you can think about it, just from a high level, simplistic definition. This is how you're going to categorize the types of jobs that you take on. So sometimes your work is defined by the services that you offer, like probably with Farhana's example earlier, the types of services that she's offering really define the work that she's doing. Or maybe with some other people, like with the example I was giving earlier of the essay coach, her work is really defined by the age of the client that she's working with. So her project types were actually reflective of the age group of the student she was going to be in communication with. So this is really where mapping out your client process and understanding your client process comes into huge play. So do that first, do that work, understand who your clients are, the types of jobs that you do, and know what is the most valuable, organized way to categorize your work. And those things will be your project types. So I don't know, Rhonda, do you have any advice on how people can think about their project types outside of what I'm saying? It's always so difficult to explain.
I think for me, I kind of did mine based on my service types. So for me, the way that I send out brochures are based on the type of service I'm providing to them. So kind of look at it as what type of service are you going to provide for this client? Or another way, if you want to segment your clients out by, for example, if you do coaching, consulting, and then I have a client that does coaching, consulting, and events. And so her project types are based on that versus the actual drilled down services.
Yep. Yeah. So it really just depends. Another thing, there are limitations around the project types. You can only have 17. So it depends on, how you can kind of figure that out. I was actually talking with a client the other day, and she is a service provider in 3 different cities, and each of those cities has 4 different services. The 4 services are the same, but one thing that was really important to her when she was looking at her pipeline or when she was going to automate her process is what city they were in as well. So we decided to do her project types as like, San Francisco hyphen the 4 services, and then East Bay, and then hyphen the 4 services, and then, South Bay, and then list out the 4 services, so that when the client was filling out the contact form, the question was, what services are you interested in, and what area are you looking for service in? And then that way the project type drop-down list showed all 12 options, and then from her project type, she could automate from there. So you got to get creative here. I'm going to put the work on you guys because everybody's process is different. Obviously, all those examples we just gave are totally all over the map. So that's got to be part of it that you guys can own. And again, Rhonda is a HoneyBook Pro. This is part of what she does. So if you guys feel like this is too much, go to her pro page, hire your girl. She'll be able to help you out. But for now, I just want to show you guys the project types. This is where you can edit them. Of course, you can hover and trash can anything here that is not relevant to your business. You can add new ones, get this list looking good, and then we're going to go to the contact form. So step number 1, project types, get those looking good. Those are going to come into play in your project pipeline. Okay, so you'll be able to, anytime you're looking at your jobs, click into whatever stage the person is in, and then even filter by project type to be able to see who's who and what category of work they're doing. Okay. And the way that you get that information into HoneyBook is through the contact form. So you get the drop-down list looking accurate, describing what you do for your clients, and then be sure to include the question in your contact form. So what I do when I'm auditing a contact form is I come in and I look for these 2 little circles that are interconnected. These are telling me this is a smart field. Another way you can audit is by clicking the plus button and again, going to those suggested question types. We were talking about these in the brochure file. These are all of the smart field kind of options that are not only going to affect your project details inside of the project for the client who's filling this out, but it'll also come into play when you're filling out the contract. The project types specifically are going to control those workflows. So this is where you can come to see if you're already including that question. So this gives me a heads up. Hey, you're already got this question on your contact form. So if you're thinking, well, where? Then you go back and you look for the 2 circles and it'll tell you this field is tied to project type. So I know I've included it. And you can word this question however you want, depending on what your project types are, right? So I was saying in that example of the woman who is servicing multiple different cities with her same 4 services, her question is going to say something a little bit different than this. With our client who is working with students of different age groups, what services are you interested in? And then having a drop down of ages makes no sense. So her question was more like, what grade is your student in? And then she had her project types listed down. But this is where you'll do that. Include that in your contact form. I also know Rhonda mentioned earlier, no matter how you're getting in touch with people, no matter how they're hearing about you, whether that be, so in her example, she said they see an Instagram post and they click her link in bio. So what is that link in bio for her? She's using her direct link. Okay, so you can publish the contact form onto your website, or you can have the direct link in your link tree, in your Instagram bio, or you can just have this standalone page. Okay, so this standalone contact form, this direct link option is essentially just a landing page that only houses your contact form, so that when people are texting you, I recommend having this saved as a note on your phone so that when people text you, you say, great, so awesome to hear from you. Can't wait to work with you. Please fill out this form. Everybody, you're going to ask them to put in a little work at the beginning so that all their information goes into the HoneyBook system consistently. And then we're going to get into how to automate it. Okay, so whether you are publishing your contact form on your website, whether you're sharing it via direct link with a text message on your Instagram bio, on your Facebook bio, however you're sharing it, make sure that your project type question is included. Okay, and then, so we've gone through the first two steps, right? So we've gone through adjusting your project types, adding the project type question to your contact form, and now you're going to not set up your automations yet because you need to go to your templates first, right? Ron has been talking all about this. You guys got to make sure your templates are set up. I know this sounds like a lot of work. You guys got this. All you got to do is make sure that you've got email templates set up. I promise you the work that you put in the initial setup, even if you took a week of saying no to some jobs just to set this all up, or you don't have to take a week off. You can also hire Rhonda. Get this set up, get these emails written out, get this process mapped out, come up with those different instances and situations of the messaging you need to be communicating at the different points in your process. If you're sending a brochure file pre-consultation call, that email is probably going to have a link to your scheduling. It's probably going to thank them for reaching out. It's probably going to reference the link that's in the email where they can view the brochure. So anticipate all those different moves, map those out, get your whiteboard, whatever your process is, sticky notes, map those things out for yourself, come in, build out those templates that you need to be there, because now you're going to go to workflows like Rhonda's been teasing to. Some of you guys will see this as automations in your account. We're moving to calling it automations. So click into the workflows automations tool. And when you go to build out a workflow, you'll see what we mean of why it's so important to have those templates built out beforehand. Because when I click in to adjust my workflow or to build a workflow, I'm not going to see a preview of the message. I'm not going to be able to edit it. I'm strictly choosing from a list of titles. So that's another thing. When you build out those templates, make sure the title of them is something that you identify very easily. And the way you can always adjust titles in HoneyBook is in the top left-hand corner, just like this. Even though we're in a workflow right now, it's the same exact thing when you're building out a template. Just click your cursor in and change the title. It'll all save automatically. Okay, so give it a good title that you recognize. And now you're building out your automation. We finally made it. I don't know how, I've been talking for 10 minutes and we're finally getting to building out an automation. Rhonda's happy because she knows this is the process, you guys. It's a lot of work, but once you get here, we promise it's worth it. So I'm going to backtrack really quickly just because I want to show you, this is kind of the coup de grace of what we've been talking about. We've talked about setting up your project types. We've been talking about getting that project type question in your contact form. We've been talking about setting up your templates. Now, why did we have you add that project type to your question? Because right here is where you automate with your contact form. Okay, this is what we've been building up to. We've been like climbing this mountain and we're like at the peak here with this information. You can choose to apply a workflow based off of the project type that someone selects. So if you know that your coaching clients need to receive a specific 5-step follow-up process where the first step is getting a brochure, and then you have 3 follow-up emails, and then you have a task for yourself to call them as a final attempt, and then the last step is just to archive them so that you keep your pipeline really clean, you can go ahead and select. So it says right here, choose project type to automate. Incoming contact form inquiries of the selected project types will have this workflow applied. Okay, so you can check a box next to the project type that you created way back at step number 1 to say that these are the steps that you want to be applied to them. Okay. And then in this example, maybe your brand and your design clients, they receive the same brochure because it's a very similar process. You're displaying similar services. You just want to know, you just want to differentiate those people maybe in your pipeline view, but for the most part, they're receiving the same steps, the same follow-up information. So for these 2 project types from your contact form, you'll be sharing the same information. So you can select multiple project types to go through the same flow. Or Rhonda also talked about this, you can default for the contact form. So if you have multiple contact forms, which I know we've gotten questions about, you can absolutely have multiple contact forms. You can default for a specific contact form or for your default contact form to have all those people go into this specific workflow. So if you don't want to differentiate by project types, you don't have to. It's just a good way to give your clients kind of that personalized touch while still being able to automate. So that is absolutely an option. We are short on time, so I definitely want to make sure I get into showing you guys how to actually build out these steps. Once you do all that preliminary work, building out the steps is not that hard. If I had started with showing you guys how to build out these steps, you would have been completely lost. So doing all that pre-work is so important. I know we've been driving that point home today, but when you get in here, you're basically going to see 4 options of what you can send to your clients. Okay, so you've got the option, like Rhonda's been saying, to create a task. So if there's something that you want to do, like if you want to automate archiving a lead, you're not going to be able to do that, but you can add a task for yourself to remind you to archive that lead. Okay, so that's what tasks are for. Tasks are the perfect use case, like Rhonda's been saying, for any of those instances where HoneyBook is not able to automate it, but you want to remind yourself still to do that. Okay, you've got the option to send a questionnaire. Anytime you send a questionnaire or a brochure file in HoneyBook, I'll show you up here. It's going to give you the option to send the file. So you can choose the title of the file that you've built out in the master template section, but you're also going to be able to choose that email. So this is why Rhonda was saying, make sure you've got an email that ties to the file every time before you go to build out the workflow, because you're going to have the option to say, okay, I want this file to go out, but this is the email that it's going to come with. Because as we saw in the example earlier, when I sent that brochure, it comes in the email. There's a button that says view brochure, view questionnaire, view proposal. Anytime you share a file, it's going to come almost like an attachment to an email. It's a button that your client will click and it'll take them to the client portal. So always have your email templates ready. And then you get to decide what triggers you want it to be sent on. This is the big, big thing, you guys. This is where people start to overcomplicate it. Do you find that people overcomplicate it too, Rhonda? I feel like
Yeah, I do. I feel like if you already have the templates and everything in place and you've mapped out your customer journey, this part will be a cakewalk.
Yeah. Okay, great. I feel the same way. So there are several options here in terms of minutes, hours, days, weeks, based off of any of these numerous triggers that you have. So after activating workflow is always going to be the first step when you're trying to automate with the contact form, because after activating workflow means they fill out the contact form and the workflow is automatically applied. So having this first step set up as after activating workflow is really crucial if you want your clients to receive this step 1 action the same day that they fill out the contact form, or whatever. Maybe you want it to go, I don't know, a couple hours after activating the workflow. In pretty much every workshop, we've talked about how responding to them the first day they inquire is super important. So wouldn't necessarily recommend doing anything besides minutes or hours after activating workflow if you want to automate that first day step for them. And then you, like Rhonda said too, you have the option to send automatically or approve before sending. Now, approve before, first step, send automatically, almost 9 times out of 10, that's what you're going to do just to get that first action out so you're not having to reply to every single inquiry, because Lord knows you don't hear back from every single one of them. So getting that first step automated and getting that process rolling, getting that ball rolling is super crucial. Once you get into steps 2, 3, 4, maybe you want to do something more like approve before sending. Okay, so I'm going to give you guys an example. Approve before sending is really, really helpful because it's more than just approve yes or no. When you do it this way and you're sending an email, you can actually go into that email and edit it before you send it out. So if you want to personalize that touch before you hit send on it, if you want to skip that step, you can skip that step. If you want to just be reminded that you have that workflow applied and go, oh no, she already booked a consult with me, I don't want to send that second email out. This is what I really, really recommend, especially if you're someone who's a little bit timid in automating your entire process. Setting nearly everything. This is just a piece of advice I give to clients who are a little bit more scared of automating their full process from the get-go. If you don't have someone like Rhonda on your team to double check your work, I recommend setting everything to approve before sending. Yes, it's somewhat counterintuitive, but it'll give you that trust and help you build that trust with the system that you can automate it, because you're going to find that if everything is set to approve before sending and you're going in every day to approve every single message and there's not been one single instance where you didn't have to skip or edit or something, you know now that your process is something you can automate. Okay, so let yourself build that trust with the system, set to approve before sending. If that's something that speaks to you or makes you feel a little bit more confident, approve before sending is always going to give you the option to thumbs up it and send it, skip the step altogether, remove the workflow altogether, or even edit the message before you send it out. So if you find, for example, you're editing the message every single time before you send it out, that's a good cue to say, okay, I need to go edit this template. This template is wrong. So just giving yourself that space and time to kind of figure it out, I think is really helpful for some folks. And then, of course, you can always come back into the workflow and change those steps to automatic. So kind of up to your process there. I know we're cutting into the Q&A time. Rhonda, was there anything else that you thought I should show while we're here on the live demo before we get into Q&A?
No, I think that all of that information on there is everything I probably would have said as well. Right. I think, yeah, it's Q&A time.
Awesome. Yeah, I pulled a bunch of questions as we were going through also. I'm just going to keep my demo account up here in case there are some HoneyBook specific questions, but let me start rattling these off. Let's see. Can you make different contact forms, like one for clients and one for vendors? Yes. Okay. This is exactly what we were just talking to. I'm glad that somebody asked this question because I wanted to show you guys. So if you want to make multiple contact forms, you just come up to Tools and Contact Forms. You're going to make sure your left menu is opened up. And then you've got this Contact Forms button right here, and you can add as many as you want. And then when you're inside of the contact form, this is another way that you can automate with workflows. So make sure you're in the contact form that you want to automate. So let's say you wanted to automate your vendor contact form. So you've got your vendor contact form. You go into the settings of that specific form, and you can say, hey, everyone who fills out this contact form, I want them to automatically be assigned a project type. So say you don't want to ask the project type question because it doesn't really fit the bill for your business model. That's totally fine. You can say, this specific contact form is only meant for my online course clients or my vendors or whatever, and assign that here. Okay. Oh, I'm losing my breath a little bit. Okay. Are we able to get a copy or guideline to how to create a customer journey list like you just displayed? Ooh, Rhonda, I'm going to let you take that one.
Yes, you can. I actually just did a 5-day challenge. And if you don't mind, I can definitely share that workbook that has the template in there with anyone who attended today.
Great. Okay, awesome. Yeah, let me make a note of that so we can include that. What did you say that was from your 5-day challenge?
Yes, on how to build out a customer journey.
Okay, amazing. Cool. We love a freebie. Okay, cool. Let's see. I'm having trouble with a contact form because it doesn't have fields for all the information I need. It's not quite flexible enough for my niche. Okay, I kind of love this question because to me, this is like a challenge because I'm like, are you sure? And I kind of love it because like the custom questions, you know, of course you have the suggested question types that are tied to smart fields, which obviously there's a lot of wish list items that we wish there were more smart fields that could be added. So I totally hear you on that front. But in the custom question area, you can ask as many types of questions as you want. You're just basically choosing the format of the question here. So I would encourage you, I didn't write down the name of the person who asked this question, but I would encourage you to try the custom question types to try to fit the bill there. And then at least you're collecting that information. Or maybe this is an opportunity where you include some of those questions in the brochure file like we've been talking about and send that out as a longer intake form after those people inquire. So you can really get creative there. So I'd recommend you to just dig a little deeper and make sure, because there are certain things about this form or building this out that are not super obvious. So I wouldn't be surprised if there was something that was missed, because I even talk to like super users sometimes who are like, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize that you could do that. So poke around, read an article or something. Usually there's a way to solve for what you're looking for, or you can always chat into concierge too. They're here 7 days a week. They would love to help you out. So chat into them and see if maybe there's a solution that you hadn't considered yet.
Yeah, that was my same recommendation, to just make, even if you wanted to minimize that contact form, use the brochure or even a questionnaire to send out automatically as your intake form.
Yep. Yeah, because I think just as a best business practice too, you don't want your contact form to be like a novel that they have to write in. Like the last thing you would want is to discourage someone from reaching out just because the contact form is asking so much of them. So kind of a fine line of asking what you need there for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's see if there's some more Rhonda specific questions. What if after the discovery call or consultation, we wanted to present an entire business plan and proposal? Is brochure option the way to go? Rhonda, have you dealt with any clients who do something similar where after the consult call, they're doing like a very tailored kind of business plan for somebody and sending the bookable file? Like, do you have ideas of around how they would do that? I have some ideas, but I just figure you work with more clients than I do. So
yeah, I haven't had anyone who wanted, I did have a nonprofit and they were very structured in how they did things. And so that initial brochure didn't necessarily work for them. So I did send them directly the brochure, which the proposal, which you do have that option to create proposal templates inside of HoneyBook as well. And so you can absolutely do it that way. But yeah, for me, it was either that or I created something in Canva and uploaded it as a brochure.
Exactly. Yeah. I like that solution too. So I think depending on the situation, if you're finding that the HoneyBook tools are creating more work for you, that's a sign that it's not a good solution. And that is totally an option. Sometimes that's the case with certain business models. The tools in HoneyBook are formatted. They can be rigid. They do not fit the bill for every single use case. We are aware of that. You guys should be aware of that too. Sometimes there is a better tool out there to fit the bill for your needs. So if you're creating really, really tailored business specific business plans that the HoneyBook brochure content question or service block, very kind of rigid format, doesn't fit the bill for, look to an alternative program like Canva or something else that, maybe even however you're doing it today makes the best solution. And then when you go to send out your proposal, you click new file, you send your proposal. There is also the option inside of any project to upload a file. So you can always upload it there so your clients can view it and you can refer them back to the client portal, which Rhonda has mentioned. So this is where you can share the client portal link. That's going to allow them to create a login and come to this page anytime they need to reference their job with you. So that might be a good use case for someone who's asking this question, because you want to give your clients a very consolidated, beautiful, compact version of what's already in their email inbox. So that's a perfect use case for this. Or of course, you can always email them and simply attach the file as well. So even when you go to send the proposal, you'll have the option to attach. So you can send the bookable document, attach whatever, third-party tool you're using to share that kind of business plan and do it that way. But I think, it depends on what your business plan shows, right? Because if you need content and images, of course, you can create branded images and things in whatever third-party system and then upload them to the file. But it's just a matter of what you choose to do. And again, if you're already creating that stuff in Canva, the secondary step of uploading it to a customized brochure maybe is counterintuitive and doesn't make so much sense. So really just depends on the approach there. Okay, we did not get time to go through all the questions, you guys, but let's see, one last thing. Can you adjust, this was a question that I saw come through a couple times. Can you adjust the proposal after you send it? Yes, you can. This is like one of the best things, you guys. Anytime you hit send on a proposal, so long as it's a scheduled payment schedule, if it's recurring, you cannot do this. So I recommend really making absolute sure that you are a subscription-based, a subscription model-based business if you're going to use recurring payments, because having a scheduled payment plan allows you to go back into that proposal file that you hit send on. So when you go into the file section, you can just click into the proposal. Let's see if we've got one here. So this one isn't sent yet, but anytime you go into the proposal file, you'll have a big edit button right up in the top right-hand corner. You can click that and it'll basically create a version 2 of the file and allow you to go in and edit that and resend it to the client. So you can always do that. Alrighty, guys, we are at time. We went through so much today. I'm sweating. I'm caffeinated. I'm tired. I need some water. This was great, Rhonda. Thank you so much for taking the time with us today. Huge insights. I'm going to post your link to your pros page so people can reach out if they're interested in your services. So thank you so much for joining us here.
Yes, absolutely. And I would definitely, if you have some follow-up questions, I encourage you guys to visit the pros page and book a 15-minute free discovery call and go over some things. And of course, if it's way more detailed than what is needed for the 15 minutes, then absolutely you can work with me. I have do-it-yourself services and done-for-you services.
Amazing. All righty, everybody. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you, Rhonda. Keep an eye out for the recording coming your way tomorrow. And everybody have a great rest of your Tuesday.
Bye.
Bye.